Okay, if you've watched any of the previous videos, you might have seen me putting like little operators, little arguments into a function to change how it behaves by default. So if I go to my logs directory, I can give you an example that I've already done in the previous video, which is I can do head and so I can run the head function on this file, temperature.log, and it spits out 10 lines. But I can also put in an argument, so in this case n3, to change how that behaves. So in this case I've told head to only report 3 lines of data instead of 10. So if you've seen me doing that, you might have been wondering how the hell I'm supposed to know what all the operators are that are available. So that's going to be the subject of today. I'm going to show you how to get help in Linux, where you can look for it, and I'm going to use the list function ls as an example. Because the ls function is quite boring. It doesn't really require a video in itself, or at least I wouldn't like to do one, but it's a good one to use because it's quite customizable, and it's a good one just to use to demonstrate the help functions and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So briefly, if I run ls just on this directory that I'm in, logs, it'll spit out a list of the files that are in there. Similarly, if I go to my home directory and I do ls, it'll spit out the files that are there. So far so good. But let's say I want to change the format of how ls operates. And let's say I don't want to spit it out in a row, I want to put it out in a neatly organized list. Well, in that case we need to know what the operators are that are available to us. There's 2 ways of doing it. The first is if we just type the name of the command and then -- help. So this will basically do the same as doing cat on a text file. It'll dump all your text into the command window. You can roll up and down using your mouse scroll wheel. So what the help file is telling me is that the way I use this function up here, usage, is I use the command's name and then one of these options if I want, and then optionally I can give the name of a directory or a file to run ls on. So there's quite a lot of customizations available. The ones I'm going to focus on today are this one, -a, which is used to view hidden files, -l, which is used to display stuff in a list format, and -h, which converts stuff to a human readable format. Okay. So that's one way of getting help. The other way is doing man for manual and then the name of the command. And in this case I actually get the same information, but it's in a pager program instead of just like being dumped into the command window. So I can go use my mouse keys to go up and down and get a better view on it. Now, quite often, if you're looking for detailed information, it's better to use man than than help. The reason being that help quite often has like a sort of limited amount of like key operators that you might use very often, whereas the man page has got the full whack. So the other thing is that not every program has a man page, and not every program has a help file. So sometimes you'll hit help and nothing will happen. So if that happens, it's worth trying man and then the command. If you try man pages and you don't get anything, it's worth trying the help function. So let's put what we've learned into operation. So again, running list on this file doesn't show us anything. Let's do ls-a, which from our help files we know is the show everything or show hidden files. In this directory there's not much going on, but you will see these 2 have been added. What these are effectively links to the current directory, dot, and the parent directory, dot, dot. If I go to my home directory though, and if I run ls-a there, you can see there's actually quite a lot of hidden files. So there's ones including my bash history, there's ones from a profile, there's a lot of configuration stuff going under the hood that's normally hidden. If I just run ls. So running ls-a will show all that stuff. Clear my window, right. So if I run this ls-a command again, you can start to see a bit of a problem, and that's that I've now got multiple rows of files, and it's not very easy to read, and I've only got the names of the files. I don't have any further information. So another option we can use is ls. We'll still use the -a operator, but in this case we'll also add l, so the list format. 2 things happen when I use list. So the first is that the files are neatly ordered into rows. So each file is a row and all the information about a file is spit out. But the second is that, as you can see, there's a whole lot more information. Now, most of this won't be important just now, but it's just worth spending a couple of seconds to go over what you're actually looking at. So this string on the left-hand side represents the permissions that are attached to that file, with these letters representing the ones for the user, these ones for the user's group, and these ones for the world. So, for example, this file, bash history, only the user has read and write privileges, and no one else has those privileges at all. Down here, for this one, select editor, the user has read and write privileges, the user's group has read privileges, and the world has read privileges. So you don't necessarily need to know what any of this means right now, you just need to know that this string represents the permissions or privileges that have been attached to different user types for this file. The second one is the number of links to the file. The third is the user who owns the file. And this one is the user's group who owns the file. So every user has a default group, so if you've created the file manually, then these two will both be your username, so your user and group will be the same. This one is the size of the file in bytes, which is not a particularly easy to read format, which is why we'll use the -h operator in a second. There's the timestamp, so the time the file was last accessed, or edited rather, and then finally the name of the file. So that's ls with the list operator added. Let's also, just for the sake of argument, use... I'll clear my window actually. Let's run ls. We'll keep the list format and we'll put the h for human readable operator on. So what you can see here is everything's basically the same as if it just run... In fact, I'll run list in isolation for comparison. So I get the same data with the ls-lh as to do with just the -l operator. But the difference is, if you look at the file size, it's been converted from this like really awkward, clunky measurement in bytes to a measurement in kilobytes, which is more easy for a human brain to understand. So that's the idea of the H, human readable. So similarly, if I go to my logs directory and ls-h, ls-list h, yeah. So you can see it's a lot easier to interpret 156 things, so 156 kilobytes than it is to interpret 159100 bytes. So I mean, this H is just a way of like sort of making things easier for yourself. Anyway, I'm starting to digress a wee bit. Let's just go back to what we're talking about. The take home from today is that there's two ways of accessing help. One is you punch in the name of the command and type help after 2 dashes to get the help pages. The other way is man pages, and then the name of the command to open the manual in a pager program. And as I said earlier, if you try one and it doesn't work, try the other one. Okie dokie.